Good afternoon. Here we have one of our favorite clients, Rosenblum ESQ, number one traffic ticket lawyer in America. Right, Hananya?
At least in New York and New Jersey. I don't know about America. That's a little bit of a stretch, but I'll take it.
Hananya, do PBA cards work or the 50-50?
You know, you hit on actually the number one most traffic page on our website, traffictickets.com. The short answer is that they sometimes work. It's really the police officer's discretion. There's definitely no harm in offering it to the officer, but you definitely want to do that before he issues the ticket, because if you wait until afterwards, it's usually a done deal.
What's the best practice? You get pulled over. What is the best thing? How to act? What should you do and not do when you get pulled over?
So it's a little counterintuitive. Most people say, oh, never admit to anything. The fact of the matter is that if they have evidence on you, they're probably going to get you convicted anyway. Believe it or not, the best advice is just be respectful. And I know, as an attorney, this might sound a little strange to say this, but I've actually had officers say that they appreciate honesty. And when somebody says, yeah, officer, I might have been going a little bit fast, or whatever the case may be, most of the time they appreciate honesty. They certainly appreciate respect. Police officers are very into respect. So you just want to be respectful. Obviously, if you did something really serious, you definitely don't want to admit to it, but you can still be respectful. And most police officers will really appreciate that.
Could someone call an attorney while they're being pulled over? What's the rules with that?
Well, if your car...
And have you had that experience?
We have had that experience. Most of the time we tell people you just have to let the officer finish doing what they're doing. Probably not the best idea, especially because you're not supposed to be using your cell phone when you drive. Also, the officer...
I'm talking about once you get pulled over.
Yeah, but I'm saying, even if your car is on the side, if the officer sees you distracted, they may be a little bit frustrated by you doing that. So I would definitely recommend waiting until after the police officer is done and you make your way to a safe location and your phone is on hands-free, then you can dial up traffictickets.com. But I definitely wouldn't recommend doing it in the middle of the stop.
What's the rules with DWI? Could they actually take your car? Does it happen, or is it in theory?
No, it actually can happen, and it does happen. Many reasons to be very careful about drinking and driving. One of them is, yes, they could actually take your car. So they've, believe it or not, done that. Yes, they can. It's called self-forfeiture. They can actually take your vehicle.
What's the likelihood of it happening?
Can't say that. We really don't deal with forfeiture cases. But like I said, the consequences of DWI are very severe in general. You could lose your license. You could have to install a breathalyzer, many other terrible things. So those are where you could, God forbid, kill somebody. Definitely reasons enough not to drink and drive. Forfeiture of your vehicle is somewhere on the list, but at least for me, more towards the bottom.
What do you think about radar detectors and Waze app? Do they work?
Radar detectors do work. Waze definitely works if people are, of course, tagging where the police officers are, but they don't always work, especially if it comes to laser, or if the officer has a good line of sight, you may just not have enough time to respond and hit your brakes before the officer sees you. So it's kind of like the PBA cards. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Certainly, welcome to use one if you're in New York or New Jersey. Just note that some states actually consider them illegal. I think Virginia, can't say for sure, but
I know in Quebec it's illegal. They have huge signs you come in.
Make sure to check your local rules before you.
With Waze app in existence, do you think there are less tickets, or you don't see a difference before and after?
We haven't really seen a difference, but I'm sure that it's definitely helped a lot of people.
Do you think the cops have to work harder, probably?
Yeah, in fact, the police actually tried shutting down those features, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in California. They were trying to actually get Waze to stop doing that, because they were saying, oh, it's interfering with law enforcement and things of that nature. We can't go after people if they know where we're around. But as far as I'm concerned, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they can track us, we should be able to track them. That's a little sort of my 2 cents off the record on that.
What's the story with... I just forgot I wanted to ask. Hold on a second, we'll get to us. Tell us something most people don't know about being pulled over in traffic tickets.
What do most people not know? Well, first of all, a lot of people don't know that even if you're guilty, you can still get out of your ticket. Very often people hesitate. They think, well, it's dishonest to fight a ticket if they know that they were guilty, or they think, well, there's no way that I can win this ticket. In New York City, it's trial only. They don't negotiate. So a lot of times people think, well, my goose is cooked. There's no way I'm going to win this ticket. But you can fight your ticket, and actually the cost for representation may be more reasonable than you think, and we may be able to get you a much better result than you initially thought. So.
And point reduction, what's the options?
So outside of New York City, remember New York City is trial only, so outside New York City we can negotiate a point reduction with the prosecutor. This is also a little known fact, but people think that if you take a driver safety class, it knocks off the points or it erases the points. It actually doesn't erase the points or the infraction. It gives you a credit on your record towards suspension, but importantly, the conviction actually remains on your record. So when it comes to things like your auto insurance or future police officers or judges seeing what's on your record, unfortunately, doing the driver safety class does not erase the conviction from your record.
So does it help your insurance rates, or does it?
Well, you save 10% off your insurance, but it doesn't prevent them from increasing your insurance. And your insurance increase for a single ticket could be much more than 10%, upwards of 30 to 40% for a single ticket.
State to state transferring of a license, do the points carry over?
Great question. The clear answer to that question is no. It's not the points that transfer. It's the conviction that transfers. Every state will transmit infraction information or conviction information to another state. What they do with that is up to them, and every state has different rules. So, for example, New York does not take points from will not record points for any out-of-state conviction. New Jersey will record 2 points for any out-of-state moving conviction. So even if you got an 8-point ticket in New York and you're convicted of it, in New Jersey you will only end up with 2 points. But interestingly enough, the original conviction, the speed and the speed limit, will be recorded on your record. So again, it might help you in terms of points, but your auto insurance company will still be able to see that you got that big fat ticket in New York. So
when you get pulled over, it will show up?
If you get convicted or you plead guilty, not if you fight it successfully.
What about, would you suggest people get their first license out of state and then move to and transfer to where they live?
No, I mean,
because that happened to me by mistake. I got my license in Ohio, then I moved to New York, and poof, the points were gone.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Because I failed a test twice in New York.
Yeah, people try to do things like that. I definitely can't recommend it. Of course, the legal thing to do is you're required, within a certain amount of time, usually it's 30 days of moving to a new state, you're required to switch over your driver's license to your state of residence.
Right. For me, I actually got my license in Cincinnati because I couldn't get, when I went to school there, then I moved to New York. And what about, when you say you need to do it legally in 30 days, have you seen the justice system, is that the right word, enforce that? It doesn't seem like it's something they really care about.
Yeah, it's pretty rare because ultimately they'd have to prove that you established your residence elsewhere, but you definitely need to be careful because where this also can be very critical issue is when it comes to auto insurance. Auto insurance companies don't want you to be licensed or live in one state and get auto insurance in a different state in order to save money, and a lot of people will do that. They'll register their cars in Iowa and where the insurance is cheaper, and then they'll drive the car back to New York where the insurance is much more expensive. And that could actually be insurance fraud. If you don't garage the vehicle there, if you don't, you live there, and your insurance company is under the impression that you do, and God forbid you get into an accident, they may actually disclaim coverage or worse because they realize that you were basically just trying to subvert the rules and get cheaper insurance by registering your vehicle in a different state. So you have to be really careful with that. Not so much with driver's licenses. They're a little bit less likely to enforce that. When it comes to insurance, it could be a real problem.
How do you know if you're getting a good traffic cop lawyer? What are good indicators?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's like vetting any other attorney or professional. You want to look at their years of experience. You want to look at their reviews. You want to look at their client reviews. You want to make sure that, look, every professional is going to have a few bad ones, but if the vast majority of them are good, you're going to realize that the person is good. You want to check their responsiveness. Are they responsive when you've reached out to them? That's hopefully the type of responsiveness you can come to expect. If you hire them, you want to ask them about their results. And, ultimately price is usually a function of their experience and how much time they feel like they're going to spend on your case, like any other professional. You can't expect to get $1,000 worth of legal experience and time, but if you're looking for really good quality representation, you may not want to go to the Walmart of the traffic ticket industry.
You have a lot of people calling you, and it's seemingly certain cases you can't win. Do you still take every single case?
We take almost every case because there's almost no such thing as an unwinnable case from our perspective. Many times people will call us and they'll seem to have a very complex type of scenario that they're facing, but at the end of the day, one thing is really important to remember, and that is that in our system, it's innocent until proven guilty. It's their burden of proof to prove their case. And if they can't prove all the elements of the case, you will win by default. So our goal really in these cases is not to argue about the fact most often, or he said, she said. If the officer said he did it and you say you didn't do it, of course they're going to believe the officer. But there are so many technical grounds that we can argue in these cases that there's really almost no case that is unwinnable, at least in the traffic ticket realm. If a case is an unwinnable case, whether it's the evidence is strong or maybe it's a DUI or the stakes are very high, it doesn't mean it's unwinnable, but very often we would recommend a plea bargain or a negotiation, not because it's not winnable, but just because the stakes are very high, and we would rather ensure that our client end up with something that's more of a reasonable outcome than roll the dice at trial and then end up with someone who ends up going to jail, or gets a lengthy license suspension or something like that.
Cameras, are they enforceable? Are they private businesses? Are they? I get all these different information. What's the real answer? And as well as tolling and not paying your toll bills, not paying your parking tickets.
Pass violations.
Is that all? I'm assuming each one's different category. Like Easy Pass is state.
There's several infractions. I really can't speak to the constitutionality. In many states, they have been fought and challenged successfully. In New York, they threw out the cameras because they found that they weren't so accurate. In New Jersey, rather, in New York, they still have a lot and an increasing number of traffic cameras and speed cameras in school zones and things of that nature. So, but the most important thing to remember is there's 0 points infractions. So if you get them, it's kind of annoying, but most of the time it's just worth it to pay it. I have a friend and neighbor, he says, I always challenge my tickets no matter what. And he came back to me in shul, a week later, and he said, well, I challenged my camera ticket and I lost, so you were right, I probably should have just paid it.
So you can challenge a camera ticket?
You can, but think about it. Their evidence is pretty clear. They have you on camera most of the time. That's pretty much the end of it. It's very different than a police officer usually doesn't have a recording of what they saw.
Is it considered I know there's a number of fines and they tow your car, right? Is there a number?
Once you get to a certain amount of money and penalties,
yeah.
I think it's just like parking tickets. Once you get to a certain level, they probably can do that. I know they can do that with parking tickets. I've never seen it happen with camera tickets, but I suppose it's probably possible that they could suspend your registration or whatever for unpaid or once things go a certain period of time.
Is that true that the camera tickets is a private company that works with the city?
That I don't know. We actually don't handle camera tickets or Easy Pass violations or parking tickets. Trust me, we get calls about this all the time, but small potatoes, stuff that's just not really something that's worth people hiring us for, so we just don't deal with it.
Gotcha. I know one time I had a parking ticket. They towed my car, and I went to the judge after, and I showed, because it was a much bigger. Once they tow, they charge you a ton of money, and I fought it. I took pictures of the spot, and they did waive it. I got my money back. So wow. But then it wasn't a $20, $50, $100 ticket. It was they know how to rack up fees very well. Once they pull out that tow truck, party's over.
For sure.
Cars being impounded in private areas. You deal with that or not really? What's the rules?
Don't know.
Okay, I think we've covered. Did I not ask any questions about speeding tickets, or covered most of it?
Yeah, we didn't talk much about speeding tickets, but that's okay. They're big point tickets. Like I said, there's definitely what to do, whether we can negotiate or not. Depending on the jurisdiction, if we can't negotiate, we fight at trial. So for sure, the number one most common ticket is the speeding ticket. People are doing it all the time. By the way, just in case you're interested in this statistic, in Corona times, we've seen a very significant increase in high-speed tickets. People going over 100 miles an hour. The roads are more empty. People are more free in the metro areas. It's kind of like people just feeling more open road type of feel. So we've definitely seen an increase in those types of tickets. And but
is there a police department in the tri-state area that's known to give the most tickets?
That's a great question. Like per capita or per vehicle?
Yeah, whatever it is.
That I don't know. I know that many years ago I did look at the courts, the traffic courts that had the highest volume of tickets or the highest revenue.
And what were they?
Yes, there's Greenburgh, Westchester, Colony in upstate New York, some of the Buffalo area courts. Many of the courts that are really very, very heavily trafficked. It's no surprise. Suffolk County Traffic Violations Agency, they handle many counties worth of violations, Long Island Expressway, things like that. So,
what's the rule with that? If a New York State trooper pulls you over in a town and they downgrade the ticket, the money goes locally? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
And how does that play out to a ticket?
Yeah, well, that's exactly how it plays out. One of the reasons why, parked on pavement or 0 points infractions became such a popular thing. You say, well, I was speeding. Why did you plea bargain me to park on pavement? Well, the answer is because all the money goes to the local locality, except for now. The governor, I think it was Cuomo, added a $25 surcharge because, of course, now the state felt that they needed to make some money too. But yes, when you plead that, tickets in general is a revenue share between the state and the local municipality. When it comes to parking violations or non-moving violations, the money, except for that surcharge, goes completely to the town. So it's a big incentive for a lot of these towns just to plea bargain a lot of these tickets down to parking tickets. That being said, they don't always give you a parking ticket. People sometimes call me up and they say, I got an 8-point ticket. Can you get me a parking ticket? Well, maybe, but it's not like they let everybody get away with murder. So
I'm assuming the lawyers that you work with have local relationships with the judges, so they're more effective if you just drive 6 hours from New York City and think you're going to fight it yourself.
There's no question about it. Local relationships can make a big difference, which is why in the cases which we don't handle directly out of our office, we engage local attorneys to go in and we pre-vet them to make sure that they're super experienced and that our clients are getting the best possible representation. And professional courtesy can really make a big difference. Remember, this is a negotiation. This isn't a trial. So most people would rather be more lenient and flexible with friends and people that they know. And also, if you handle it yourself, you may make a blunder and not even realize it.